Let's talk about players we would not want to go on a road trip with.
Okay, I want to start with the coach.
Oh,
Now, look, I don't know what Kyle is like in his private life, but he's, like in interviews, he's kind of dead. It recalls someone else to mind that I don't want to talk about who looked dead on a debate stage a few days ago. But now maybe off the record or in a car, and if you if you went out to a bar, Kyle would be a lot of fun. I don't know, but he's not my first choice for someone I'd want to sit in the car with for, say, 8 or 9 hours. What about you?
The question with Kyle on that one would be like, what would you talk about?
Good point.
What would you talk about?
Good point.
Yeah.
Could you talk about Shakespeare's other two great tragedies?
I don't think you could talk about Billy Shakespeare. That's out the window.
Billy.
No Billy Shakespeare. I don't know if you could get too far past football with Kyle. I don't know. See, that's the thing. That's why I always thought Harbaugh was so cool. Like, yeah, he's nuts. We all are in a way, but he could actually talk about all kind of stuff. He watched PBS and Masterpiece Theater. He watched Foyle's War. I mean, he knew history. You could talk to him about the Civil War or World War I. I don't think you could really do that with Kyle.
I have a feeling you're correct. And I'm going to say something else about Harbaugh. He's extremely intelligent.
Yeah.
Would you agree, Iggy?
Extremely.
He graduated from Michigan.
Social cues, a little bit more of an adventure for him, but actually like knowledge.
He's got that knowledge.
He's got the knowledge.
He's got the knowledge.
Now, Kyle did graduate. Did he graduate? I think he graduated from Texas, which is an excellent school. I got a cousin, one that went to Texas. His brother went to Michigan. So there's good schools. But I don't know about Kyle.
Iggy, do you know what Kyle majored in?
I can look it up.
You can't? I'd be curious. Communications?
Oof. That would be, yeah. I'll have to look that one up. Let's talk about other people we wouldn't want to go on.
Go. I said Kyle.
All right. Brandon Aiyuk.
Oy.
At least this year. Because I feel like the whole conversation would be about his contract thing. Man, who wants to sit in a car for 5 hours with someone complaining about only being offered $26 million? And that sucks, Brandon. That really sucks, man. You got money problems, man. I feel you, dude. You're the one person in this car with the biggest money problems. Let's talk about it. You know what I mean? And you're also worth 30, man. I think you're worth 30.
You think that topic would dominate the conversation?
Yeah, if we talked about anything. Brandon seems like the kind of guy who'd look at his phone most of the trip.
Oh, he'd be on his phone.
I think so.
There are those people. Have you ever gone out to dinner and you see a couple sitting across from you and they're both on the phone?
Those are the relationship that lasts. Those ones. Yeah.
I got another. Iggy, I got another I wouldn't want to take a road trip with all due respect. Brock Purdy.
Why?
Because he's not interesting.
Oof.
Here's another thing. He's fully formed as a football player. I'm not sure that he's fully formed as an adult yet.
Yeah.
And what would you talk to him about?
Yeah, he's really young.
Yeah.
Yeah. 24.
It would be like going with your grandson. For me, it'd be like going with my grandson. Although my grandson, Sam,
you'd have much more fun with Sam.
Is really interesting.
Yeah.
So,
and he's 14.
And he's 14. I'd rather go with Sam than Brock Purdy. I think Sam is more sophisticated.
Yeah, with Brock, I mean, you could talk about agriculture.
Yeah.
You could talk about Christianity. You could talk about the West Coast offense or Kyle Shanahan's offense. Other than that, he doesn't really have the experience.
I would be very interested in talking about Christianity. I want to say, when I was an undergraduate, I attended Lafayette College in Pennsylvania, and it's a Presbyterian school. And, I had come from this entirely Jewish background. And every year at Lafayette, we were required to take a class in religion. And it was, Iggy, it was so interesting. I had never heard of the Holy Trinity before. They have these philosophers called Christian existentialists who don't necessarily believe that you can prove God, but make a leap of faith for God, like Kierkegaard. And I found studying Christianity so interesting, but I bet my suspicion is it wouldn't be at that level with Brock Purdy.
Maybe not. Maybe not.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who else would we not want to have in the car with us?
Oh,
How
I
about
have
Christian McCaffrey?
That's who I was going to say.
Yeah.
Do you want me to say, or do you want to say why not?
We could both. You go first.
I think he's probably a very nice guy.
Yeah.
Nothing I've ever heard him say at Stanford or with the Niners strikes me as interesting.
Yeah.
Ever. He strikes
Not
me
one time.
as no, not one time. He
No.
strikes me as a very serious person who has a very narrow range of interests.
Yes. Yes. So he could be pleasant. In fact, I'm sure he
Yeah.
would be pleasant. But
Yes.
the conversation would be, I don't know if it would go anywhere.
Right.
Talk about golf. Talk about golf.
If the conversation were to go in interesting places, because obviously he has the intellect, if it were to go in interesting places, I'd be thrilled. I'd be thrilled.
What about Bosa?
You would have a better feel than I would.
I feel like he wouldn't want to be in the car. Maybe none of these players would want to be in the car. I feel like he'd be quiet and he'd be uninterested. But if you got him talking, he might say interesting things. That's the thing about Bosa. If you get him talking and he's in the mood to talk, he says very interesting things. So that could be an interesting conversation. That could be he's a wild card.
I love it. When you would say he might not be interested to be in the car, why?
Sometimes he doesn't even seem interested to be like in the locker room. Like he's so rich. I think he has this a little bit of an attitude like this is all so beneath me. Like, do I have to do any of this? Kind of.
I see.
But it's part of my duty as the highest paid player on the team, so I'll do it with a smile, but I'd really like to be anywhere else. He kind of gives that attitude sometimes.
I'll tell you who else might be fun. Deebo Samuel.
I would agree.
He could be a lot of fun.
I think so too.
Yeah.
He's almost 30 years old. He's smart. He has opinions. He seems funny. I think Deebo would be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, like he's outgoing as opposed to Brandon, who's kind of inward, salty.
Brandon is going through growing up.
Yeah.
He's in the process of growing up.
Right.
He's not really grown up. The way he's comporting himself is not really grown up, and it's turning off a lot of people. But he may come out on the other side okay.
Yeah, what I've realized with football players a lot of times is you can't necessarily expect them to be fully formed grown up at 26.
Of course not, because all they've been doing is football.
Exactly. So maybe 30, sometimes not even until you're retired.
Right.
But you see a guy like Deebo, like when he was 26, he seemed a little immature. Now he's almost 30. So I think circling back to what's important qualities in a road trip partner, unless you're Sam, my 14-year-old nephew, being a grown-up helps because Brock Purdy got rejected on the grounds of not fully being a grown-up yet.
Yeah, absolutely. That was my main. I think he's a very nice person, but I don't know that I'd enjoy spending any time with him.
Okay, one more. Fred Warner.
Okay. Again, you would know better than I would. My feeling about Fred Warner is he's highly intelligent.
Yes.
Highly intelligent and absolutely decent. Absolutely a decent, the kind of person you would want to marry your daughter.
No question.
Absolutely decent.
Like all the things I like about Talanoa Hufanga, Fred Warner has a lot of those qualities.
Yes. Would he be interesting? I'm going to say something. I'm not sure. He seems to me like a person who goes along with the program. It would never occur to him to say, I'm going to be different.
Mhm.
This is not for me. I'm going to be different. Bosa is always thinking, how can I be different? Kittle, I think Fred Warner is a company man, and I might find that a little uninteresting. Iggy, am I being unfair to him?
That's how that's how he comes across to me. I like everything about him, but he's just boring because he is a company man, and you know what he's going to say if you just listen to the coaches that week. He's going to say exactly what the coaches said before the game, after the game. It's like, man, great, but you're not a coach and you're an individual, and it'd be so wonderful if we could get to know that guy one time. But I don't know. I mean, he's like one of these guys from San Diego, and San Diego's like a very military place, and he just kind of seems like the guy who's serious about being in his platoon and being being the captain, and I respect that. But I don't really want to go on a road trip with him.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm going to name two other people who are not 49ers anymore who I'd like to take a road trip with. Steve Wilkes.
Yeah. Oh my God. We would have a lot to talk about.
And I think he, no matter what the Bosa or the rest, he struck me as a real man, a guy with tremendous dignity and smarts. So he's one, but the other even more, Robert Saleh.
Yeah, you never got to really cover him. Yeah. And what's interesting about Saleh is he's such an interesting person. You'd be interested in him. He'd be equally or more interested in you.
Yeah.
And that's rare.
The only two 49ers who ever really expressed an interest in me were Ronnie Lott and Steve Young. And they were interested. What are you doing? What are you thinking?
Yeah.
What are you reading? And you remember it, and it means a lot to you.
Jimmy Ward would be fun on a road trip.
Oh, God.
Boy, would he have a lot to say.
He would dominate the conversation, and you'd welcome it.
So what do you really think of Kyle Shanahan, Jimmy? Boom. That'd be fun.
You just have to give him a name, right? And you'd get a dramatic monologue.
Okay, I got one more. And this is a few years ago, I would have said absolutely not. He's no longer a Niner, but things have changed. Jimmy Garoppolo.
I would take a chance on Jimmy Garoppolo.
That might be interesting.
First of all, seems like a very nice person.
That's true.
He has a lovely laugh and a lovely smile.
Yeah.
And boy, would he have things to say.
Trey Lance.
You would. Oh, I would say absolutely. I think Trey Lance, Iggy, the one thing that you've told us here, what he said to you when he walked by you that time, revealed that there's a whole person in there that was really aware of how he was getting screwed and yet did it heroically. Remind people what he said to you.
I forget the exact phrase again, what he said. Thanks for how you covered me. I forget exactly what he said. My memory's no good.
Didn't he say thanks for sticking up for me?
But he may have said that.
Yeah.
He may have
and where were you standing?
In the locker room. He was walking out. And he walked past me. It was almost like in prison where you move your lips and you're not trying to not let anyone, not that I've been to prison, but I've seen Oz. You're not trying to let anyone see what you're saying because I'm the enemy. And he was on the way out. Literally and
figuratively. He was on the way out within a few days.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, we got more people. Suggestions in the comment section. What about you were close with Bill Walsh? Could you have done a road trip with Bill Walsh?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And in a way we have.
Yeah.
Bill and I, we would drive to the city together. We would be in the car together. And it was very interesting. He didn't dominate the conversation. We talked like two friends. Bill was so bright, and he had a wonderful sense of humor, sort of like Johnny Carson. He would come back at you with a stare. His timing was impeccable. So yeah, Bill Walsh may be top of the list.
What about George Seifert?
No. Okay, here's the deal. George Seifert is what I said about Fred Warner, we would say about George, the most decent person, someone who'd be loyal, very intelligent, absolutely lacking in a sense of humor. There wouldn't be a grin in the car. It would be, for me, with my temperament, a little grim. He's the kind of guy, when he wasn't involved it was the off season, he would go camping and fishing, and he would do things with friends who weren't in football. you would have to be sort of an outdoors person to be with George. And clearly I'm not.
Okay, one more, and then we're gonna get to the Klay Thompson stuff and the Willie Mays stuff. And this guy would be an all-time great on a road trip. No longer on the team. Joe Staley.
Oh, I love that you say that. Yes.
Yeah, he would be a lot of fun. He would have opinions. He'd be making you laugh, and he'd have stories, incredible stories
that he could tell very well.
Yeah, that's another thing we didn't mention. You got to have stories. It's a lot of time, man.
Right. Anyway. Hey, Grant, you got to hear this one.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. That's our road trip. What?
I got a question.
Sure.
Staley used to be on the post-game show. Why is he not on the post-game show anymore?
I don't know. Because NBC really Sports Bay Area doesn't know what's good.
I mean, he was really good, right?
He was really good. He was an asset for them. Maybe he didn't want to do it.
Maybe not.